Hey, everybody, and welcome to the Billion Dollar Banker podcast. I'm your host, Nicole Perrone, and today we have with us Matt Doherty, who is the owner of Belcom NJ, which owns Tap Into in Belmar and Asbury Park, which is an amazing advertising online website, right, that posts a lot about the daily things that are happening in Belmar and Asbury Park, which is amazing. He's also the former mayor of Belmar, who served a little over 7 years in office there during Hurricane Sandy. So we have some fun stories to share. And also the former executive director of the NJ Casino Redevelopment Authority and the Housing Authority. So we have some exciting stories to hear from you there too. Thank you for coming.
Oh, thank you. It's my pleasure to be here with you, and thanks for hosting a podcast like this. To give small businesses ideas about what's going on out there.
Awesome. Yeah. You know what? When we spoke originally, when you were asking me, tell me about the podcast. Like, who's the audience? And it's such a broad and diverse set of people that come here, kind of to advertise, so to speak, right, and share your message. So similar to what you do with Tap Into, sharing just stories and news across the local environment to get the message out. So I'm excited for our listeners to get to know more about you. And so tell us about who is Matt Doherty.
Well, again, thanks for having me here today.
Yeah.
Quick 60-second bio. Born and raised in New Jersey. I love New Jersey. Mm-hmm. I love making fun of New Jersey, but I truly wouldn't want to live anywhere else. I had the opportunity to go to school in Washington, D.C. at Georgetown University on a track scholarship when I was much younger and faster and weighed less. But as soon as I got done with my master's there, I wanted to come back to New Jersey. I used to live in Edison in Middlesex County. And when you look at New Jersey, right, there's so many great spots to live. Mm-hmm. The two that I like, that I think make it really unique, is in Hudson County, because you get to take advantage of, New York City.
Yeah.
And then the shore.
Mm-hmm.
If you live in Kansas, you can't have a shore house.
Yeah.
So I was drawn to living in Belmar. Looked at a few different places: Asbury, Bradley Beach, Avon, Belmar, Lake Como, Spring Lake, all incredible towns with great personalities.
Yeah.
But we were able to settle in Belmar. Going on 23 years there now, and
wow.
I love living there. I love being the mayor, as you mentioned, for 2 terms.
Yeah.
It's a special place, and I really got to know more about small businesses and the challenges they face when I was mayor, particularly during and after Sandy. So before Sandy, Belmar had 143 small businesses. After Sandy, we had 142. We only lost 1.
Wow.
And that was a burrito store up on the boardwalk that simply, was only going to be there for a year anyway. But going through that process and meeting with small business owners and the struggles they face on a daily basis, mixed in with their personal lives, if they have kids or don't have kids, and other challenges they have,
right.
Really gave me a stronger appreciation for small businesses themselves.
Oh, yeah.
So one of the nice things about Tap Into Belmar and Tap Into Asbury Park is we cover a lot about small businesses. Outside of Atlantic City, there are no major real corporations at the Jersey Shore. So that's another thing that is such a great draw about living in this area.
Yeah, it is. I think about, 143 businesses, it's a small town, a big second hometown, right? What's the percentage of second homeowners in Belmar? Is it high?
Yeah, it is high and growing. Belmar used to be a party town. At one time, there were about 1,300 summer rentals.
Wow.
Now they're under 300.
Yeah.
A lot of that's because of the real estate market. So if you bought a house in Belmar in the 70s and you rented it out, you got as much money as you could out of it.
Sure.
But nowadays, the average house in Belmar for the first time is selling for over $1 million, $1,033,000. So a lot of these folks that had these places that were renting to, I'm going to say kids, but 21 to 30-year-olds, and the challenges that can present, particularly with law enforcement on occasion. So they're just selling them and cashing them out. But they're so expensive that the people who are buying them aren't going to operate them as summer rentals. They're coming in and using them as second homes. So the second home market is very strong in Belmar, which also helps the real estate market stay strong as well.
Stay active. Yeah. I was reading about your time as the mayor there, and I think this is this is our first former mayor on the Billion Dollar Banker podcast. So I'm excited to talk about this. But I was reading that you helped lower taxes, property taxes, was it your time as mayor there?
Yeah. So from the time when I took office to the time I left, we had no tax increases. We actually collected less in taxes by the time I left than we did previously. And the way we did that was through economic growth.
That's great.
Main Street did well. We had a lot of private dollars come in. And we did this, think about it, recovering through Sandy, which was the worst natural disaster in the history of New Jersey, and it landed right on our doorstep.
I was going to say, what a crash course in being politically involved in a town to have to go through one of the biggest hurricane tragic events that we've ever had in this area.
Yeah, and the way the way Belmar is situated, you have the ocean, that everyone knows, but people forget about the Shark River and the inlet. So it's surrounded by water on three sides. All that came up that night, and we flooded about 1/3 of the entire community. So think about it. That's well over 1,400 houses that the basement's flooded.
Yeah,
all those washers, dryers, refrigerators, furnaces, hot water heaters. That's all on the front lawn now. That's all got to get picked up.
I remember seeing boats, in the middle of the road coming from the marinas in Brielle. I remember seeing a couple on the golf course. So, as the mayor, when a devastating hurricane like that hits, what's the first thing that you had to do in that moment?
The first thing you do is you think very, very small. You think about, all right, what's the emergency right now? I still remember, a day or two afterwards, people were coming up to me and saying, isn't this such a tragedy what's going on with the climate that's caused storms like this? I'm like, no. The issue right now is we need formula.
Right.
We need firewood. I'm not interested in discussing giant policy issues, right? So your focus has to narrow significantly.
Right.
And ultimately, it doesn't matter you're a Democrat, Republican, Libertarian, Conservative, Liberal. At that time, government has to function well.
Right.
You people want government. They want it in a big way because that's the only thing that's going to solve that problem.
Yeah.
Johnson & Johnson is not going to come in and rebuild the boardwalk.
Right.
AT&T is not going to clean up the litter in the streets. It was government that had to do it, and government had to act efficiently and effectively. So I would say the first thing I did was just, again, think small. Every hour, every minute, what's the challenge? How are we overcoming it? What's the next one? What's the next one? As opposed to, looking at 30,000 feet, you're looking at it at, 3 feet.
Yeah, no, that's interesting because I think a lot of times when talking about just politics in general, I mean, you really got to think about like what are the most important issues to resolve right away, right? Because there's so much, I'm sure, that it's on your desk. And so it kind of makes me think of, and before we get too much in the weeds on like your time, but how did you decide to run for mayor?
So as I mentioned before, I had the opportunity to go to Georgetown for college, and I started there in 1991.
Okay.
And this guy ran for president of the United States in 1992 called Bill Clinton, and he was a Georgetown graduate. So he ended up winning, and he won 2 terms, and he was the first Georgetown graduate to ever become president of the United States.
Wow.
And, everyone got excited about it, and it just sucked you right into government and economics and public policy, kind of following that lead. Now, obviously, I'm never going to run president of the United States, but I did want to come back and have a meaningful impact here in New Jersey. So I've always had a career outside of politics, but I looked at politics as a type of service. I spent 4 years as a councilman, which was a great experience, and then, as you mentioned, almost 8 years as mayor, which was tremendous memories. And also, the nice thing about a small town like Belmar is you get to have and see immediately the impact that you have on your community, whether it's changing the old pipes underground because people had brown water in their tubs, right? And then paving that road. And it sounds mundane, but you just helped a mom who had to wash her 2 toddlers in brown water.
Yeah,
you get to have that immediate impact as opposed to, passing some budget on a federal level. You never really know. By
the time your term's over, you're not even sure if that policy now changed because the new administration came in. And
right.
So that's probably one of the most rewarding things. What would you say is one of the most challenging things about being mayor?
The biggest challenge in Belmar being mayor was the lack of affordable housing for folks who want to stay in town. So you would have families that moved into town and, they raised their children, then they got older and, they would look to sell because they had so much equity in their home. There's no place for that couple, husband and wife, maybe to buy in Belmar. It's just, they're priced out.
Yeah.
So that was my biggest challenge. And I left before we were able to really address that. And it's just supply and demand, right? There's a tremendous demand to live in Belmar, and there's not a tremendous supply of housing to meet that. And the folks that I see suffering are the ones who want to stay in Belmar, but don't want to pay, the taxes on a 5-bedroom house. They just want to have, 1 or 2 bedroom condo. Those don't exist.
And so speaking of housing, and so, my background's in mortgage, and we were talking a little bit about mortgage financing because you have a little bit of a background in that as well, right?
Yeah, I worked for Bank of New York from about 2002 to 2006, 7, right before things went sideways with the mortgage market and the financial meltdown on Wall Street in 2008. And it was a great experience. We were talking about the Fannie Mae form or the FHA forms and everything else. It was a very rewarding career as I started off as a loan officer and ended up as the vice president for BNY Mortgage. Yeah.
Oh, that's great. And so actually, interestingly enough, I work with some people that are from BNY. And so we were before we end, we'll have to talk about some of the people we may know that are still local in this area that started there. Yeah, it is. So when you think about, talking to people that let's say somebody wants to get into politics, right? And they've never done it before. What would be your advice to them?
My
how
advice
do you get started?
Jump in. Don't overthink it. Don't ever analyze it. Don't think you can't do it. I will tell you that sometimes to get up by yourself and speak in front of elected officials can be challenging. So bring a support staff. Bring a couple of friends with you. They don't have to get up, but at least you know that they're there.
Sure.
But I would just tell you, just start. Just get engaged. It's kind of like running and getting in shape. Just start. It's the hardest thing to do. And then once you're pedaling, down the street and you're making some positive progress, it feeds on itself. And then you're gonna, again, as I mentioned before with the brown water, you're gonna start seeing some results of your actions. Right. I mean, you have obviously a very big election this year.
Yeah.
Right. The presidential. Then next year we have another big election for who's going to be the next governor of the state of New Jersey, because the current governor, Phil Murphy, is term limited.
Right.
So you have 2 exciting contests in the next 14 months
coming up.
Yeah.
Sure.
So now's the time to get involved, whether it's school board or you want to get on an appointed board like zoning board or planning board, which have, as you know, a lot of significance.
Sure.
And then, move up to council, and then who knows, maybe you run for county commissioner or Congress or state assembly or state senate. But first and most important thing is just get started.
To get started. And so that was a pretty good path to kind of pave the way. It's getting involved locally in your community, whether it be on the school boards. But it's good to know, because there's a lot of great people out there that might not know what path to take. So thank you for that.
No, my pleasure. And if there's anyone to get her help, who's looking for advice on that, be happy to help as well.
Awesome. So now let's talk about your time in your housing authority roles. So you were executive director of the New Jersey Casino Redevelopment Authority,
yeah,
right?
It's a mouthful.
It is.
I was the executive director of the New Jersey Casino Reinvestment Development Authority.
Yes.
It was founded back in the early 80s after casinos came to Atlantic City, because the whole notion of casinos coming to Atlantic City was it was going to benefit the city. But it wasn't benefiting for many years. So they created this authority, took money from the casinos. It was a tax on gross gaming revenue. It was 1.25%. And they would take that money and then, in theory, use it to improve Atlantic City. A lot of the money found its way to places like Montclair or New Brunswick or Newark. So it did go all over the state because it's a state authority. When I got there, I really wanted to hyper-focus just on Atlantic City.
Right. So now this was just on the winnings, that the tax of the 1.25% was issued by this authority, so to speak, is it on everything going on within the casino?
Only on casino revenue, so not on the hamburgers or the hot dogs or the pancakes they sell.
Okay.
But yeah, the craps table, the slot machine, all that.
Got it.
So it was great, and I'll always thank Governor Murphy for the appointment and the opportunity to do some important stuff.
Yeah.
We focused on non-gaming economic development, and because we had limited resources, I really wanted to focus the money we had on removing blight. So if you talk to developers, clearing the canvas for them helps significantly. So if you have a rooming house with, people dealing narcotics and engaging in prostitution and a vacant lot next door to it, it's hard to develop that vacant lot next door to it if you have that problem adjacent to it. So in working with Atlantic City Police Department, we would identify which rooming houses were the worst of the worst, and then we would target their owners and buy them.
Right.
So
Okay,
we were using our
interesting.
money to simply buy up the blight and get rid of it.
Would you buy it like from eminent domain, or would it be just something? Hey, we're
No.
okay.
We
So you
would
just
say,
go
"Look,
and make them an offer, and
yeah. And
let's do this.
and at the same time, the police were issuing them summonses
Interesting.
because they had, folks that did not behave well,
Mm-hmm.
that you wouldn't want in your community or any community. And eventually we were able to buy a few up and, make the ground more fertile for development. And the nice thing about Atlantic City is there are things called opportunity zones, OZs, they're referred to. And in Atlantic City, they have 4 contiguous opportunity zones all along the oceanfront, right? Asbury Park has an opportunity zone. It's nowhere near the oceanfront.
Right. No.
Long Branch has one, nowhere near the oceanfront, right?
So
Jersey
that's the
City.
unique thing about Atlantic City is
Right. So typically an opportunity zone is placed in the most economically depressed area of an urban area of a city. Here, that's along the beachfront.
Right. That's interesting. Yeah, it's right there on the
acres of vacant land on the beach.
So then what are you seeing by way, because you were not only involved in the casino redevelopment authority, but also in the housing authority as well. So how do those two work together?
The the Casino Reinvestment Development Authority was a 17-member or is a 17-member board that reports to the governor's office. Very professional, outstanding financial auditors, a lot of checks and balances put in place to ensure that the money was properly spent.
Right.
The Atlantic City Housing Authority is an absolute disaster, to put it bluntly.
Nicely.
And I tell people they're the largest slumlord in Atlantic City. They misallocate money. There are consultants making hundreds of thousands of dollars without the money actually going to fix the toilets, to go fix the heating and the hot water. So you have families that have to endure real suffering, and the families that are endured are the lowest income.
Wow.
Right. So what was most egregious to me was to see the corruption of money allocated from the federal government to benefit low-income seniors, low-income families, folks that have disabilities, and to see that money diverted away in a corrupt manner to the friends of folks that were on the board. So I for good or for bad, if I see something inappropriate, I'm gonna call it out. So I had private conversations as much as I could to cajole them to stop these these practices. They wouldn't stop them, so I went public with them, and I was punished by going public with them by being terminated.
So ultimately, you were let go of the housing authority because you blew the whistle on corruption.
Correct.
Wow.
And I never thought I'd ever be in a position that I would ever say
that would come
a paragraph like that would ever come out of my mouth. Yeah.
Wow.
It felt like I was in a movie.
Well, I mean, look, I think it's hard to do the right thing sometimes, especially when you see everyone around you not doing the right thing. And so, standing up against things that are difficult to stand up against it's a testament to your character, right? And what you're willing to do in the name of what's ethically and morally right. So when you think about the housing authority, the casino redevelopment authority, what are some of the biggest opportunities you see down in Atlantic City right now for real estate developers?
I mean, it's wide open.
Yeah.
And there's no significant developers down there. There are some from Asbury Park, a gentleman named Pat Fasano. He did great in New Brunswick. Then he went to Asbury Park, did a remarkable job in Asbury Park.
Yeah.
So he's taken his money from what he's made in Asbury Park and using it in the opportunity zones, right? Because he's smart about deferring his capital gains and developing in Atlantic City. But he's just one person. You need many more. And you can see how transformative the Jersey Shore has been over the last 20 years.
Right.
I mean, Asbury Park, remarkable transformation.
Great example.
Long Branch, good Lord. Right. And then if you look at Atlantic City, it was so dependent on casinos for so long that, you have these vacant lots. Again, acres and acres of oceanfront property that's just sitting there.
Is there something that you think is deterring developers from getting in there faster?
We did our best to remove the blight. I do think that people may have some weariness when it comes to the casinos and the weight that they carry in Atlantic City and on a state level. So maybe that may be deterring them from building down there. But I could tell you could buy, per square foot, you could buy much cheaper oceanfront land down there than anywhere else.
Yeah.
Now, eventually, I think it will get there because at some point, Asbury is going to be built out. At some point,
Right.
Long Branch is going to be built out. The
Right.
only other urban center you really have along the
Is-
Jersey Shore is Atlantic City.
Yeah, no, that's a
So,
good point. I mean,
it's
it
gonna
keeps
get there.
moving. It'll get there, right? But people that are there today are probably very early on, I would imagine.
Right, which
So,
is smart.
that's
Again, going back to Pat Fasano, he was early on in Asbury Park. He saw
Mhm.
something on Cookman,
yeah,
on Bangs, on Madison
Yes.
that other people weren't able to
didn't
see.
see. And
And-
willing to take
and-
the risk, right? Early on. I mean, that's really what it is. You kind of get that reward of lower pricing if you get in earlier, but you also have that risk of you got to wait a little bit longer for the end game to
sure.
get there.
For sure.
So let's talk about Tap Into in Belmar and Asbury Park. Tell us about what you guys do.
So Tap Into is an online newspaper, essentially. We publish one local story every day at a minimum. And we really fill the void of what newspapers used to do. So
Mhm.
in this area is the Asbury Park Press, and they used to cover, daily what was going on in towns like Belmar.
Mm.
They used to assign a reporter to the
daily
to
news.
cover the government. When I was
Wow.
on council and I was mayor, we'd
Mhm.
talk at least on a weekly basis to the reporter from the Asbury Park Press about what was going on at council meetings, what's
Mhm.
going on with development. There's no more of that.
Really?
Um,
Why do you think that is? Why is there no daily news reporting on a local level the way there used to be?
I think they've just cut back staff so significantly. Again, not to continue to beat up on Asbury Park Press, but they were bought by Gannett, and Gannett just wants to see as good a quarterly numbers as possible. So
Right.
if revenue is not increasing significantly, then they start reducing costs. Right? And the best way to reduce, not best, but the way to reduce the largest cost is start eliminating salaries.
Yeah.
So so we've kind of come in and filled that void, and we're very aggressive about getting advertisers. That's how we make our money. Our site is free, always will be free. But we get a lot of local advertising. Some folks that people know, like DJs, right down
Yeah.
on Ocean Avenue.
Still promoting the partying in Belmar, even though there's maybe not as much second home rentals going on. But
No, but as
Yeah.
long as there's young people, there'll be DJs in
Yes.
Bar A. And then good advertisers in Asbury Park as well, and some of the larger ones like JCP&L advertise with us as well. So we really are on the gamut. And what we like to do for small businesses is just write about them.
Yeah.
Small businesses are interesting.
Right.
It may be a single mom who decided to go from making candles at home to getting a storefront
Yeah.
on Main Street.
And it's great that you give them a voice and a platform to be able to get that out, because a lot of times people, sometimes small business is a little more expensive than going to your big box store. But when you live in a community, I think we've done such a good job here at the Jersey Shore promoting small business and really supporting that. And I think that's the unique part about being here, right? Is the fact that we are so small business driven. There's not a lot of big corporations here that are kind of taking over. So it's really nice thing that we have about our area. But when you think about advertising as a small business, for small businesses that are watching, why tap into and maybe not another form of advertising, or why tap into in general? Is there, how much are you seeing from a traffic perspective? What kind of insight can you give us into that?
So we get good traffic on both sites, and we use Google Analytics to display the ads. So they pick out when it's going to hit on someone's cell phone. Most people get their information on a cell phone or their desktop. And at the end of every month, we can generate a report and say, look, here's how many impressions your ad saw.
Oh, okay,
right?
Great.
And I always feel it's my job to get you impressions. It's your job to have a good ad to get people to click on it and find out what you do. Right. So we can bring the people to you, but you got to get them in your store. You got to get them to click on your ad. So every month we can show, hey, look, here are the impressions you're getting, and we can change it. So, we'll have, like Chefs International advertises with us, and in Belmar they have 9th Avenue Pier, Marina Grill, and they have Anchor Tavern. So we'll take one ad and just flip it every 2 seconds. So in that case, they get really 3 for 1. And then, we'll do a certain group of ads for the summer, certain group of ads go into Labor Day weekend. Now a group of ads for the shoulder season, it's called, right? The local summer, as it's known. And then once we get into the holidays, it'll be a different group of ads for that. So what's nice is we can change our advertising on a whim.
Just like that. Yeah.
Literally click of a button and we change it. And now you're getting, you're exposing different advertising to our audience.
Okay, that's great. And now, so how do people find tap into? How are they landing on your site in Belmar or Asbury when they're looking to get information on what's going on locally?
Well, the nice thing is we have a very good relationship with Google. So
Mm-hmm.
if you just type in, Belmar San Gennaro Festival
Mm-hmm.
that happened this past weekend,
Yeah.
it'll, if not the first, the second or third will be tap
Okay.
into Belmar's, our articles that we wrote about it.
So you have the search engine optimization part of it
Yes.
down. So when people are looking for things, it's much easier to go to you, I would imagine, a platform like you locally than it is to try to do it yourself, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. And again, I don't claim to know how this works,
Somebody does, though.
but
Somebody's doing
someone
it.
much smarter than me
Yeah.
and much younger than me
Yeah, is doing it.
is the brains behind the operation.
Very
Who that
cool.
is, I don't really know,
Yeah.
but I know that that person is there,
Yep.
and I love our website. It's
Mhm.
very user friendly.
Mm-hmm.
It pops well on your phone, which
Mm-hmm.
most people get their information on their phone, particularly young people. So no, I think I'm really happy with the infrastructure that was set up from Tap Into.
I was looking at the site earlier, and I agree. I think you have everything from like government events and things that are happening locally to real estate, classifieds, obituaries. It's like a newspaper, but on your phone, right? And then as an advertiser, you could see the analytics, which is also great.
Yeah.
To know who's
And
clicking.
every morning we at 6 o'clock in the morning we send out our daily newsletter
Okay.
to thousands of folks that have signed up for the newsletter via email.
Oh, that's great.
So we also get to push content. So we try to be as aggressive as possible, as opposed to being passive and just waiting for
Mhm.
someone to click on our site. We're trying to tell them, hey, look, here's an interesting story, right?
Sign up for the newsletter,
Sign
right?
up for read the story and sign up for the newsletter. And some of the stories, honestly, they're not, especially when you cover these towns,
Mhm.
they're not always going to be positive.
Right.
So unfortunately,
Well, tell us about some fun ones. Tell us about is there any like good news that you've dropped recently? Not to say good, but like top of the story, like you're delivering the news.
We were the ones that broke the story about the chief of police in Bradley Beach,
Mm-hmm.
who, we Oprah'd a body camera video. Oprah means Open Public Records Act.
Okay.
And we were able to put together a story that ended up getting picked up by News 12. And then it got picked up by ABC, NBC, CBS.
Wow.
And we have our own YouTube channel. So it's nice to see them
Okay.
giving credit to Tap Into.
Yeah.
And that drew even more folks to the site.
Breaking the story.
So yeah, that was a nice story to break. And I will tell you that, we kept it very toned down, but in my
Mhm.
mind, I had very New York Post type headlines in my
Mhm.
mind, right? I'm
Mhm.
thinking Jersey Shore cops gone wild, right?
Yeah.
Like all these crazy,
But you toned it down.
tabloid headlines. But I had to take a deep breath. I made myself laugh, and then I calmed down and wrote, very, I don't want to say dry, but a
Right.
very professional headline, as opposed to
Right.
something,
The clickbait.
something a lot more clever. But you could have had a lot of fun with it.
Yeah. Well, that was an interesting story. We were talking about that before. What exactly happened? I mean, maybe the viewers want to know what happened in Bradley Beach with the police officer.
So that chief of police, Lenny Guida, who had been there for a while
Mhm.
as the chief, but even before that as a patrolman, and worked his way up. And there was a video of him showing up to a DWI stop, which was an accident on Main Street. And he seems to be, I'm not a doctor, but he seems to be intoxicated. And he starts getting into it with one of the sergeants. And the sergeant tells him, look, chief, just leave. You're drunk. Just go away.
Mhm.
And he wouldn't stop. He kept pestering him. So ultimately, the sergeant took the chief of police and, WWF body slammed him on the hood of a cruiser.
Oh
And this is
my
in front of
goodness.
people.
And this is all on camera.
All on camera.
Wow.
Right. So eventually the chief was forced to retire early. The sergeant, I believe, was exonerated of any wrongdoing, and now they have a new chief, and things are moving forward for the police department, and for Bradley Beach.
Mm-hmm.
But one of the judgment calls we have to make is, once we have this video, is this newsworthy?
Mm-hmm. Sure.
And there's power in that. There's power in deciding what the public should know, or you don't think it's important.
Right.
For me, I thought this was, aside from, knowing it would get a lot of hits, because there are people who admire the police and love the police, and there are
Right.
people who don't admire the police and really hate the police.
Sure.
So you get it from both spectrums, plus just the people in the middle who are like, oh my God, that's crazy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So
You're getting it from all spectrums.
So we tried to write as balanced and as professional a story as possible, and we think
Fair.
it came out pretty well.
Fair. Yeah. I mean, I think, you have your clients here are the local community. So you don't want to get them too upset with what you're writing, but you also want to have the newsworthy, like when you break a story, it's obviously going to help drive traffic. And I love the fact that you have a newsletter. So how can people sign up for the newsletter?
Oh, easy. Just go on the website and just before you leave, you get one of those annoying little pop-ups and it says, before you leave, sign up for the newsletter. And
okay.
Hopefully you sign up for the newsletter.
Well, that's great. You know, think about this as like the days when the newspaper got thrown on your driveway, right? And now you could just sign up for something local, which I think is great, and get to learn more about local business owners, events, things of that nature. So is there one that's a little bit more heavy than the other at Belmar or Asbury? Is there anything that you're seeing from a news perspective or from an advertising perspective that you'd like to share?
Well, sometimes the news can be a little more challenging in Asbury. I mean, we just wrote a really brutal story about a woman who was walking with her friend down the boardwalk, and someone completely randomly came up and started stabbing her.
Oh my God. This was in Asbury?
It was in Asbury.
Oh,
There's
wow.
no connection. He wasn't trying to steal money.
Oh my goodness.
So now this poor woman is, in intensive care at Jersey Shore.
Oh, wow.
Hopefully she makes it. But, that's a story we have to write about, right? We can't ignore that because it may paint a negative picture of Asbury Park.
Are those the stories that you're not seeing written anymore? Like, because I don't hear about things like that's not on the local news. That's not something that, I mean, obviously they don't want to advertise it in the town. Doesn't make the town look good. But are those the stories that you really don't see getting publicized a lot?
Yeah, you don't see those. We did a story on the parent teacher organization, the PTO at Belmar Elementary School is doing a mum sale, right? To raise money for things at the school. So we'll do stories on that, which are pretty innocuous, right? But other folks aren't covering them because they just don't have those reporters on a daily basis. There are weeklies, right? But then you got to wait till either, Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday to find out what's going on in your community.
What's happening. Yeah.
When it comes to us, you can find out on a daily basis.
Yeah, now people want their information like this. So what if I'm an advertiser, a local business in Asbury Park or Belmar? How do I get in touch if I have something I want to advertise on your site?
Easiest way to get a hold of me is always my cell phone number. It's a great cell phone number, I think. Anyway.
Oh, let's hear it.
732-681-1300.
Oh, that's a good one.
It's very easy.
That's it's almost like a way you can make like a song to it somehow. But we will have all your information too at the bottom of the video here, so people can email, call you.
Yes.
Looks like online, I was noticing if you go on to tapinto.net, right? You can, I believe it's tapinto.net. You can, on the left-hand side in the menu bar, you can actually sign up for the newsletter too. I see that. And you can also submit content there too. Yeah. So if someone has like a news story, they should call you too. Like, hey, this is something that's happening on the local level. I think you'd want to know about it. Would they call you for that? Yeah.
And again, we love writing stories about small businesses.
Okay.
There's always something interesting. Yeah. We did one on Asbury Fresh. Who does the farmers market in Asbury Park, but also in Homedale at Bell Works. They also do it in Red Bank, and they're really growing. And they got a great story of how it came out of two guys on Cookman Avenue who were looking for fresh produce. And one guy's like, you should start a farmer's market. He's like, that's crazy. And then he did it.
And it's great. It's perfect.
And things like that make great stories that people want to read about and we want to write about. So I would tell you, if you have a small business, it doesn't matter if you're a chiropractor or you're you own a bar. We'd love to write about it because there's always going to be something interesting there.
I got to connect you with someone we had on the show, 24 years old, just opened up Butter Me Pancakes in Asbury Park on the boardwalk. It's amazing. She's had such great growth. Business exploded. She's just got started. Like you said, just get started. She just got started. And her story is really great because it's about a young entrepreneur who's starting off in business locally. And I think she's going to be in the Freehold Mall after this, but that would be a great story of someone that wants to start a business out in the local area, just like Asbury Fresh. Like you have an idea and you just take action on it. And here in the local community, we help you promote it.
Yeah. And one of the giant success stories out of Belmar recently in the last 10 years is Pliables.
Oh yeah.
So Pliables started in front of a pizzeria on Main Street between 8th and 9th Ave. I'm sorry, on Ocean Avenue between 8th and 9th Ave. And it was, a boyfriend and girlfriend who had basically a little hot dog cart and they were selling acai bowls.
Yeah.
And then from that, now they are franchised from Manhattan down to, South Beach, Miami.
Yeah.
And everywhere in between.
Incredible.
It's incredible.
It really is.
it just comes from just get started,
Mm-hmm.
right? Everyone overthinks things. Everyone's like, oh, I'll do that tomorrow. No, just get started.
Yeah. Yeah. And sometimes the more you travel, the more that you get these like ideas from different places that you go. And I think that might've been where Pliables came from. I know it's not everywhere. My fiance's from the West Coast, and there's no Pliable out there. There's nothing like Pliable. Right. There's kind of some stuff like it, but it's not exactly what we have here. It's such a popular place to go.
Yeah.
So when you think about the future of advertising or small businesses locally, you've had so much involvement between your time as mayor and your time in politics. What do you feel like's ahead? Is there anything that you think is important to share, or any?
I just think that marketing is getting more and more targeted.
Mm-hmm.
And that's, again, why I like Tap Into a lot, because we can give you exposure to a specific market. Mm-hmm. We can break it down, whether it's, tap into Belmar, tap into Asbury Park, or tap into Westfield.
Yeah.
Right. Tap into Nutley. So right now we're up to 90 throughout the whole country, throughout the whole state of New Jersey. And if you could advertise with me, or you could advertise with the other ones, it just gives you great exposure to a network of people that are getting their local news on a daily basis.
Yeah.
And typically they're folks that have a decent amount of disposable income that you really want to target.
Right. Yeah. Because you're targeting locally. I just had someone on where we were talking about geofencing too, which is pretty interesting. How like your phone, when you type in Google where you want to go, there's so much that's kind of that you're capable of doing. Like if people are going to Burger King a lot and McDonald's pays for geofencing, McDonald's can start targeting ads to the people that are going to Burger King. Like, hey,
pretty brilliant.
99-cent Big Mac. So there's a lot of data that's getting shared when you're doing things online. But I think there's also still relevance to the print world still has it's almost like every different segment of marketing that's out there, it doesn't necessarily take over the next, it just kind of adds to it, right? So when you're thinking about your arsenal of what to do in the world of marketing, like you have to do the social media stuff, maybe you have to do some print still or some mailer stuff. Some of it's still all relevant, but like I'm in the real estate industry, realtors, they love direct mail. They absolutely love it. Do you have a lot of real estate agents? We have a big realtor audience here. What would you say to realtors that want to advertise and tap into?
Again, we have a great audience for that, particularly when you think about the strong second home market in Belmar and the growing second home market in Asbury Park. So, we recently did an article on someone selling a house on 4th Avenue. I think he has it listed for $2.9 million, and he's under contract.
That's great.
And remarkable dollar amounts. And, there's a story behind that. And again, it goes back to supply and demand. I mean, one of the realtors I spoke with, Brian Church, a well-experienced realtor, was telling me how there's only about 3 months of inventory in Belmar. That's it.
Yeah.
So until inventory picks up, and, typical towns, like where I grew up in Edison, you could either buy a house as your primary home or an investment property. No one was buying a second home in Edison or Woodbridge, right?
Right.
But we have that market here at the Jersey Shore, particularly Belmar and particularly Asbury Park, that helps keep the real estate market stronger than it would be if it was, 20 miles west.
Right. Well, we were talking about this the other day that, rates are the lowest they've been since April of last year, which is great. And hopefully that'll help move us into a more normal market with rates being in the low 6s instead of almost the 8% range, which many people over the last year had to adapt to somehow. But it's a precarious situation we're in the real estate market, being that a lot of people have very low rates. But I think, the great thing is that real estate's, it's especially at the Jersey Shore, I think, but the average price in Belmar over $1 million is just phenomenal. And the appreciation that we're seeing and the opportunity that you have in a second home community, even though it may not be predominantly a rental community anymore, there's still that opportunity that exists if you need to take advantage of it. So what's ahead for you as far as do you have any more political aspirations?
I'm not sure. I don't give it a whole lot of thought.
Okay.
Right now I'm really focused on growing my business. So as you mentioned, tap into Asbury Park and tap into Belmar. That's one component. The other component is consulting for large corporations like T-Mobile, for instance, and helping them to increase their business development in the whole state of New Jersey.
That's great. Yeah, so, that's with Belcom NJ, right? So you're doing consulting for major corporations. Is it sales and marketing consulting? What?
Yeah.
Okay, great.
Yeah, scheduling meetings with folks that are decision makers on procurement in particular.
Oh, that's great. That's awesome. So if people are interested, that's really more of a mid-sized business or a large corporation that you'd be assisting in those instances?
Both.
Okay.
Honestly, the larger corporations end up having more financial resources,
Mm-hmm.
so
Sure.
they become very good clients.
Yeah.
I also manage a nonprofit called Circle of Friends,
Okay.
and we opened up a cafe.
Oh, wow.
And our cafe employs adults with intellectual disabilities.
Oh,
And
that's
the cafe,
awesome.
we pay them $15.50 an hour. So we have
Oh.
22 employees, and we have a waiting list of another 18. So that's another thing.
Great.
I'm using pliables twice in this conversation, but
Mm-hmm.
another thing we'd like to franchise to give more folks that are adults with intellectual disabilities the opportunity to work.
Oh,
So
that's
something
great.
that Nicole and Matt take for granted, right? We
Mhm.
all come Sunday night, you're like, we're getting
Yeah.
this Mondays, right? I got work
Yeah.
tomorrow. The things that we take for granted or we think is a burden
Mhm.
is something that makes these folks so excited.
Right. They get to
You
leave
know.
the house and do something.
Right. They have a purpose and they have dignity.
Right. Oh, that's amazing.
As opposed to just getting a Social Security check or relying on grant money from someone else.
Mm-hmm.
They come to work, they put their shirt on, they got to look good,
Mm-hmm.
right? They put their apron on, they use the point of sale system.
Mm-hmm.
People are ordering their grilled cheeses, their French
Oh.
fries, and then they're charging them and they're delivering them.
And what's
So-
the name of this nonprofit again?
Circle of Friends.
Circle of Friends.
And our Circle of Friends Cafe is only possible because the owners of Bar Anticipation own the property we're on, and they're giving it to us for free.
Oh, wow. Is that right in Belmar? Where is it located?
It's in Lake Como,
Lake Como,
1709 Lake Como. Yeah, right on
Okay.
Main Street. And, it just shows you the generosity. When we talk more about small businesses,
Mm-hmm.
you may be able to talk enough about them. The
Sure.
generosity is remarkable.
Mm-hmm.
That's where the Boy Scouts go and the Girl Scouts go. And
Mm-hmm.
folks who need something, they go to the small businesses and they ask them, hey, can you support this or support that?
Right.
And they don't turn you down. And that's
No.
what's really remarkable about, we joked about there's, it's still a party town as long as you have DJs.
Yeah.
DJs, gave us a check for $2,500 just to
Oh,
get
wow.
it started.
Just to.
So
That's amazing.
so it's remarkable the support that we've gotten from small businesses in the community to help us create this business for folks that otherwise may not have the opportunity to work.
Oh, we'll have to come by and check it out. I didn't know it was
Yes.
there. Circle of Friends. So, and I'm thinking of so many people who, have someone within their family that would probably love to get them started on that second phase of life. I think we have some people in the chamber that do things that are about keeping children active, that are kind of young adolescents and out of school now, and what's next for them. So what a great, meaningful, rewarding thing to give back to that type of a community.
Yeah.
So you could get lunch there, breakfast
And lunch,
Oh, cool.
Wednesday to
Okay.
Sunday. And when you get there, you'll understand that we have higher functioning and lower functioning folks. We have folks in wheelchairs. We have folks that are non-audible. We take
wow.
anyone and everyone, and
Wow,
we
that's
give them a
beautiful.
job, and they have a responsibility. They got to show up on time.
Mhm.
They're great workers,
Yeah.
phenomenal workers.
Yeah.
And because they again, as opposed to you, me, and a lot of your listeners, what we take for granted to them is so rewarding.
Where they're so excited for. Oh, that's amazing. Well, I love to hear about that. So, Belcom NJ, which is your consulting firm, absolutely amazing. We'll have the information on how to get in touch with Matt for that. Tap Into in Belmar and Asbury Park. Amazing history and politics. Thank you for everything you've done in Belmar and beyond. And it's really been great getting to know you and have our audience get to know you. If you guys want to get in touch, you could follow him on Facebook. We're getting him on the gram though soon. We're gonna see him become more active there because he's got to reshare these clips. I told him it's part of our deal. But it was really great to get to know you better. Thanks for coming today.
It's my pleasure. You're very welcome. And again, thank you for putting something like this on.
Yeah.
I'm sure it's a labor of love, but it's not easy, and this interrupts your day and booking someone like me. So thank you for doing something like this that people can really benefit from.
Absolutely. And thank you guys for joining us. Please subscribe, like, and comment below, and we'll see you soon.